right now.
Yeah.
Call to order, Washington County Board meeting. Let's begin with a moment of silent prayer and then the pledge. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Supervisor Guzzi, Supervisor Schauder on Zoom. Supervisor Schleif and Supervisor Garath are excused. Supervisor Smisek is on his way. David, first order of business with the consent agenda. Look for motion. Motion Supervisor Kelling, Supervisor Hartwig. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, personal appearances, letters, and other communications. Do we have the check?
Doesn't look that way. Here it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
The check is on the way. The check is in the mail.
I'll just drop that in the mail.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to the Washington County Fair Housing Proclamation. And County Clerk Ashley Reichert will read that off.
Whereas on April 11th, 1968, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed into law Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, commonly known as the Fair Housing Act, as amended, which enunciates a national policy of fair housing without regard to race, color, creed, national origin, sex, familial status, and handicap, and encourages fair housing opportunities for all citizens. And whereas 2022 marks the 54th anniversary of the passage of the Fair Housing Act, and whereas fair housing means our communities are open and welcoming, free from housing discrimination and hostility, and that each one of us, regardless of race, color, religion, national origin, sex, familial status, or disability, has access to neighborhoods of growth and opportunity where our children can attend quality schools, our environment allows us to be healthy, and our families may prosper. And whereas the Fair Housing Act helps to strengthen families, communities, businesses, and our overall economy and move us closer to being a community, a state, and a nation where fair housing and opportunity are the norm in all communities. And whereas fair housing laws are enforced through education, outreach, research, and direct assistance to persons alleging discrimination, and now therefore be it proclaimed that Josh Schoeman, Washington County Executive, and Washington County Board strongly support the Fair Housing Act. And be it further proclaimed that Washington County Executive Josh Schoeman and the Washington County Board do commend all those who have been involved with the struggle for fair housing and wish continued success in breaking the barriers that limit fair housing for everyone, dated this 9th day of March 2022.
Thank you. We'll move on to consideration and upon request reading of resolutions and ordinances. 2021 Resolution 83, commendation of Peter Rank. Entertain a motion. Supervisor Pollock, Supervisor Bossert. Front row gets all of them today. Peter, you want to come forward? Sheriff, would you like to come get in with the,
Yeah. Read it.
yeah, where do you want us? Yeah.
No,
okay.
start reading.
Sorry, read it.
Okay, yep,
Well,
2020.
they're up here.
Aye.
2022 Resolution 83, commendation of Peter Rank. Whereas Peter Rank has contributed 28 years of loyal service to the citizens of Washington County, and whereas Peter Rank has chosen to retire from his present position of Detective 2 at the Sheriff's Office, now therefore be it resolved that the Washington County Board of Supervisors pause in its deliberations to pay tribute and to commend Peter Rank for his 28 years of meritorious service. Be it further resolved that on behalf of all citizens of Washington County, this body does herewith extend to him heartfelt thanks for his many accomplishments and successes. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Peter Rank as a token of appreciation on the part of this board.
So thanks. That's not a big enough word for what you guys go through and what you guys do with Russell. And I went through it too, so I know where you're going, what you're going through, and congratulations on your retirement. You're going to love it.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Yeah, it's still
thank you for all
kind of
you've
surreal
done.
here, so.
If you want to speak,
Thank you so much. Words can't express how thankful I am to been brought on board by the sheriff's office. And like I said, I'm speechless. It's just kind of like a whirlwind of emotions going on right now. So thank you.
All righty. Glasses here. All right. What we've all been waiting for. Check presentation to Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Washington County. Come on down.
All right, as part of our employee appreciation event, we do a bunch of auctioning and things like that. For those of you who weren't able to attend, we were able to raise $3,000, and our chosen our chosen nonprofit this year is Big Brothers Big Sisters. So Jamie's here with us to accept the check. Can you like to say Jamie?
Sure. So I've been with Big Brothers Big Sisters for 5 years now. In the last 2 years, just like all of you, we've seen a lot of changes, but the need for volunteers is bigger than ever. So if each of you go out into your districts and talk to people, talk about the need for mentors. We have kids all across Washington County that desperately need someone to stand next to them, to be part of their life, make sure homework's being done, make sure fun is being had. I'm assuming all of you have had a mentor in your life that made it possible for you to sit here today. So if you have the capacity or you know somebody, we'll put those dollars to good use, these dollars to good use, making sure that 50 kids on our waiting list across Washington County have much needed mentors. So.
I would add to that, it's a mutual benefit. I was Big Brother many moons ago, but I got quite a bit out of it, learned a lot about myself. And anyway, so yeah, it's beyond just that boy or girl.
I'm a big sister too, and it's definitely changed my life. There was a point where my husband and I were thinking about moving out of the county, and the very first thing was, I know, I didn't, I'm here. This year. Not at the same time. But one of the things was, no, wait, my little's got to graduate. We've got to do this together. So I absolutely agree. It's a life-changing experience. Awesome. Well, thank you.
You can't check.
Yeah, the real check.
I can't bring this one with me.
Yeah, so we'll keep this one for you unless you want to get any more.
No, I'm not sure it fit in my Buick, quite honestly, so.
We'll give you the real check.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, 2021 Resolution 84, County Aided Bridge Replacement, Town of Jackson. Supervisor Schulteis. Supervisor, whoever you are, Newman, sorry.
Speak up, Doug.
Any questions on this? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote on this. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. 2021 Resolution 85, County Aided Bridge Replacement, Town of Kewaskum. Supervisor Bishop, Supervisor Krebs. Any questions on this? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. 2021 Resolution 86, Relocation Order, County Trunk Highway Q Roundabout. Make a motion for that. Supervisor Hartwig, Supervisor Schulteis. Any questions about that? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 2021 Resolution 87, advisory resolution supporting uniformity and election laws throughout the state of Wisconsin. Supervisor Bossert, Supervisor Mahalik. Any discussion? Supervisor Markwart.
Yes, I have an amendment. There's a couple of things in the whereas that I would like to address. On line 29, get my notes here. I would like to change the words "to register voters" to be changed to read "to assist voters and collect ballots in an insecure manner." And then on line 31, I'd like to.
You want to do one at a time? Or should we do it all at once?
Can you repeat that? Assist voters in,
So change "to register voters," which would be legal, to read "to assist voters and collect ballots in an insecure manner," which more aptly describes what happened there.
I will second that motion.
Okay,
Amendment.
okay. Okay, I guess we'll.
That's amendment.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that amendment? Pardon?
Good catch, thank you.
Yep. Okay. Hearing no further, we'll vote on the amendment. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Supervisor Markwart, you have others.
A second one on line 31, I think is inadvertent, but the 6 cities should really read 5. There were Wisconsin 5 were notoriously singled out, which was Milwaukee, Madison, Racine, Kenosha, and Green Bay. So I would move to change 6 to 5.
I will second that motion.
Second by Supervisor Killing. Any further discussion on that? Seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on the amendment. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Amendment passes unanimously. Good. Any other discussion regarding the amended Supervisor Gallus? Are you speaking to the amendment or, okay,
We're done with the amendment.
right, good. Go ahead.
So again, I understand it and supportive of it, but I'm just trying to understand ultimately the end game. Yes, it's to get a flavor from Washington County residents. Why wouldn't this be pushed at a statewide ballot versus just a county ballot?
Why would it be? Well, it goes through.
the assembly.
You know,
Huh?
The assembly.
The assembly is, the assembly would be responsible to put the verbiage in for the statewide resolution or statewide referendum. We're just advising them that we want, and our citizens of Washington County are in favor of that happening. As you know, with a divided government right now, and there's no guarantee that it's not going to be a divided government for a long period of time. All of the election, proposed election laws and fixes to the 2020 have all been vetoed. A statewide.
I'm just thinking of the timing.
Yeah.
It'll be November, right?
November 8th, yeah. And it's worded in such a way that if any other counties in the state of Wisconsin want to pass something similar, so it's pretty open that way, so. Okay, any other questions? Okay, we'll vote on the resolution as amended. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, carries unanimously. 2021 Resolution 88, resolution setting Washington County elected officials' salaries. The motion? Motion, Verspalek, Gonring. I'll turn it over to Todd Scott for a minute for HR Director, and then we'll open it up.
The board should have a committee report as well as a resolution and an amended resolution. The committee report reflects paying at the 75th percentile, so the increases that are reflected there would ensure that our elected officials will be getting to and or by 2026 staying approximately the 75th percentile based on the 9 comparable counties that we look at, based on the wages that they're also moving. The amended motion everybody to a 2.5% increase, which would have the sheriff at a below the 50th percentile for the market. The clerk of courts, who is currently at the 70th percentile, would be between the 50th and 75th percentile by 2026. So that's what's in front of you. Some of them.
Okay, open up for discussion on the floor.
Todd, I was curious why the executive salary is blank after this next year.
So I do
Position-wise.
The only positions that this is affecting is those that will be for the term starting 2023 to 26. And so that's what this resolution affects. The rest of those positions would not be up for elections starting.
So that salary is not set into the future
That
as
one-
it stands now?
Correct.
Okay,
So,
and we're not addressing it with this?
correct. This resolution affects those positions that we have to establish by statute, a salary for the term of office by, is it April 15th?
Before papers are pulled.
Before papers are pulled. So that's what this is for.
Because you can't change it during a term.
Exactly.
You have to establish all 4 years.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, so you can see there's a differentiation between the salaries in your packet and what's been proposed and passed through administrative committee. We had pretty good discussion on the matter. We have enacted basically a policy to try to keep all of our employees paid at a 75% percentile. So they're within, that means 25% below the top and, towards the middle of it. But the policy we have ensures that anytime we have an open position, and I know our elected officials won't be here forever, that we want to have rates, salary commensurate with, at least that are competitive, so that we can get good employees. I know in the law enforcement sector, there are often times, especially with elected officials, that you end up with a captain or lieutenant that's actually making more than what the sheriff's making, because the rates are held down. So I want everyone to keep that in mind, that they won't be with us forever. And if we want to expect that we attract the finest employees that we can, even as elected officials, just keep it in mind when we make that. Supervisor Schulteis.
Yes, so to build on that then and ask, and I'm not fast with math, the one that did change is the sheriff. The handout says 118,509, in our packet is 123. So I thought I heard someone say that the sheriff was at just below 50%. Is that correct?
That would currently his salary relative to those that we're comparing to, so those 9 counties, he is just below the 50th percentile of the market. Yes.
Okay. And so why the change then, the 123 originally to the 1?
I can let the chairman of the administrative committee speak to that.
Thank you. The faithfully now passed administrative committee, because that was our last meeting. It is now moving and rolling into the executive committee side. Happily chaired it for 6 years, like to think that we've done a pretty decent job, so pat myself on the back. Along with the wonderful members of the administrative committee. What we did was we looked at this, and the decided that when we, as a county board, passed the 75th percentile for employees, I don't know about all of you, I would like to think it was the same. We did not move forward to make it so that elected officials were included in that. That was for employees. Okay, when you're talking about our director of human resources, our director of IT, our director of roads and bridges, our director, that handles all the staff, we have to be competitive. And I absolutely agree with that, and I've always been an individual, as I know a number of you have been, to make sure that we are paying something commensurate with getting the best people possible. We have a county executive who was given more money and proved my point that part of the reason that you run for office is to serve, and gave a bunch of money back. Okay, I'm not asking anybody that's an elected official to give money back like our county executive did. What I'm asking you to do is settle for a guaranteed 2.5% raise every year for 4 years. That's a lot more than a lot of the people who are going to be suffering through the inflation that we're having is going to get. Okay, when you look at it and then we say we have to be competitive. Well, I would like to think that the wage, and I don't mean to pick on the sheriff, but his is the bigger number at $118,509.48 that he'd be earning in 2023. It's not like you can go and say, well, gee, I think I should be paid more money. I think I'll run for mayor, or excuse me, mayor, sorry, Freudian slip. I think I'll run for sheriff of Fond du Lac County instead. Well, actually, Fond du Lac County's paid less than that, right? I mean, I believe that was one of the ones that was below. So I think I'll run for sheriff of Waukesha County instead. It doesn't work that way for elected officials. Part of it is to serve, and that is one of the reasons you get into it. And why do we want to guarantee that they're going to be in the top 25% as elected officials? That's not what we did. That wasn't the spirit of what we did when we voted for that 75% for staff. They are not staff. They are elected officials. And I think that there's a huge differentiation between the two. And by commingling those things, I think we confuse it. We also send, from my perspective, a very bad signal to those people who are really starting to hurt right now. We've watched gas go up in the last month almost 70 cents a gallon, and it's accelerating. And we're going to say, but we're going to guarantee a higher wage for those individuals who happen to get elected. Bad message at a bad time. And even if that wasn't happening, I still believe that this body meant that 75% for staff and not elected officials. You're talking a salary that in 4 years will go up from $118,509 to $27,621. That's $10,000 almost in that 4-year period. He's worth every penny. Okay, but like our county board chair said, he's not going to be there forever. This is not a personality thing. This is not a merit-based. In fact, that was brought out by Director Scott, that this is not a merit raise. That's not how we set elected officials' salaries. We are guaranteeing 2.5% every year for 4 years. And realize that that's compounded. It's 2.5% on the last year. So it's more than a 10% raise over that period of time. Realize how that works. We voted on this in the administrative committee and got a unanimous vote to do this. And I would sincerely encourage, I know that there are other arguments, we're going to be below 50%. You know what? I know Marty Schulteis well enough that whatever few dollars it's going to make a difference, whatever thousands of dollars it's going to make a difference. If he's going to run for sheriff anywhere, it's going to be in Washington County. And my bet is that he will run again here, regardless of what we do. Understand what's going to happen with that money right now for the gas, for our sheriff's cars, for the plows, for all of the vehicles that we drive as a county. Where's that money going to come from? Okay, please know that we have to look at everything with a bit of a sharpened pencil. And giving a 2.5% raise guaranteed each year for 4 years, I think is pretty generous. Please don't go down the road of guaranteeing a specific wage for elected officials. I believe it's a fool's errand. That's why we did it. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Schulteis, did you have anything else?
This time.
Okay. Supervisor Bishop, get you next.
So we shouldn't use the 75%, and yet we're using the 75% for clerk of courts. We use the 75% when we change the salary for the clerk, the treasurer, and the register of deeds. What was that, 2 years ago? So either we do or we don't. So it's supposed to be, we were told it's a guideline, but yet
Right.
now we're throwing it out the window just for one. That I find that a little confusing, and why did we even start doing that if we're not going to continue to at least use that as a guideline?
No, it is a guideline, and it is to attract better qualified candidates. There's a long discussion even for the county executive, what salary would be made for that to make sure that we attract a good candidate to run our county. So
Remember that discussion? Yes.
it is, it's one, each one is one person, but they run an awful lot. I don't even know what offhand, the sheriff's budget is the biggest budget we have. Human resources is our human services is pretty high too. So, but it's important to have, quality people. That's what I look at. Supervisor Boucher was next.
Okay, so first of all, I agree with everything Supervisor Mahalik said, and I want to thank him for his comments. I think we all want to recognize as we talk about salary considerations, none of these salaries are referendums on the people who hold those positions. We're looking at clerk of courts here. Teresa Russell's doing a great job. Sheriff Marty Schulteis is doing a great job. Either proposal is going to set a good salary that we should always be attracting good quality candidates. The one potential concern I have, and I heard Chairman Creefall bring it up, deals with the gap to captains and lieutenants' salaries. If we go with the amended where the sheriff's salary is $127,000 a year, is there still going to be an appropriate gap to the captain and lieutenant salaries?
I haven't analyzed when this came through the committee, so I've not analyzed that. I know that the gap is very narrow. Will that overlap? I can't answer that question.
Okay, but the gap is very narrow, like within 15,000. We don't want to say exact
I don't know
amounts.
that I can answer that.
Okay, you'd have to go back and look at, yeah.
I don't want to mislead you.
Is there room to delay this till April to get that information or no?
No.
Okay,
We'll be meeting after the deadline.
okay. And if we set it now, there's no room to come back and amend it later.
Correct.
That's being prior to term.
Okay. All right, then I guess we got to go on the best available information we have. And based on that, I like the amended proposal, so that's how I'll vote.
Okay. Supervisor Dice. Boom.
Not as well. I would say I'll look to see if I can gather the information now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'd like to see those numbers. Okay. Supervisor Dice.
I think what you need to keep in mind is that these are elected positions. Anybody off the street can run for these offices. It doesn't mean you're going to get the most qualified person in there. I mean, understand that. Washington County's been very fortunate because all the people that we have had in these positions for the last 30 years that I've been connected with it have all been good, hardworking people who have done a great job. That only says that our voters are quite smart and they know who to get into these offices. But you aren't paying them for being that person. You're paying them because hopefully they're going to do the job they need to do. There is nothing that says they even have to be in this office from 8 to 4:30 or whatever the hours are now. They can be gone for the whole week or a month or 2 months or whatever. They'll still get their money.
Can I raise a point of privilege and ask if there are statutory minimum requirements? I know for district attorney, you have to be an attorney who's practiced, who's had your law license so long. I think same for judge. Is there any statutory requirements for sheriff or clerk of courts?
No.
Not that I can.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't,
all right,
I don't even, you're required to be certified.
Right.
okay.
So,
So any schmo off the street could be our county sheriff.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Not a felon.
Can't be a felon.
Can't be a felon, yeah.
So this is not where people are, what they're making, but where our tiers go to. So the proposed salary for the sheriff in 2020, they're at 116 now, 115, almost 116. The top range for the captain, if they're at the top, they are at 120 is the top of the range. Lieutenants would be at 112. So the lieutenant is almost at the top of where the sheriff, if they've been here long enough. The captain's going to exceed already.
What's the bottom of that range?
Bottom of the range, a captain starts at 90,000, a lieutenant starts at 84,000.
So a captain goes from 90 to 120. So if we had a captain who was maxed out, they'd be at 120. And for this, a sheriff for 2023 will be at 118. And by 2026, they'll be at 127. Now, the numbers you just quoted
So
me.
assuming that we're
Yeah.
giving a 2% cost of living, let's just say that
Yeah.
a 1% merit.
Yeah.
So by 3% per year, so you're gonna outpace the sheriff every year going forward.
Okay, so that's a potential issue that we need to factor in.
It's been an issue in the past
Yeah,
too.
it's always
Yes.
been, it's always been.
Yeah, so
Okay, Supervisor Krebs first next.
Back up the conversation, maybe I missed it early on. Where did this, the paper copy in front of us come from, or versus what was in the?
That was amended at administrative committee. So the one you have in your packet is what was the proposed resolution.
Okay, so the one on paper was voted and approved at admin. Can I ask where did 118 come from at that meeting?
Go ahead, we'll let the
The
chairman.
amendment was, instead of the higher percentages that were represented by the sheriff, and then either the even or slightly higher on the clerk of courts, it's a flat 2.5% per year, each year for 4 years.
2.5% from what we're currently at versus.
That is correct. So-
versus jumping up to the 75th percentile.
Which is not jumping up to the 75th.
Correct. That's what the.
That is what the one is.
The prior
So we
one,
would be
yeah.
beyond what we did the first time. We would now be turning what was a guideline into a precedent.
Okay.
And that's not why I voted for that, and I don't know them.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation.
Okay. Supervisor Kelly?
Struggling with this a little bit. I guess my concern here, Mr. Chairman, is that if I'm a captain in the sheriff's department and Sheriff Schulteis elects to retire, and I'm the best captain in the sheriff's department, but I already make about $10,000 more than what the sheriffs make, and I choose to not really run for sheriff because it wouldn't be worth it to my family. With all due respect, we're not all a bunch of saints here willing to just give up our money for the greater good of the people necessarily all the time. So I guess in the interest of making sure that we're bringing on the best candidate, the best people, we can go for his third best. That's fine if that's what you're looking for. A guy who makes a little bit less than the others can run for sheriff, I guess. But in Washington County, when it comes to the sheriff, who leads probably the largest department we have in tax dollars, I really kind of hope we can attract a really good candidate. I would propose that I'd like to see that number bumped up in the first year. I can live with the 2.5 in the out years, but in that first year, I'd like to see a little bit of catch up considering that they had to go 6.5% to even get them close to the 750. I'm recommending, or I'm going to amend that a modest increase in the first year, starting in 2023. I'd like to amend that up at, so it was supposed to be 6.5. I'd say 4%. And then 2.5% in the out years. So a little bit of a bump up to get them at least a little bit ahead of the captains, hopefully, and then continuing to raise up. And I hope somebody will second me on that.
I'll second.
Yeah, you're second, okay. You have that motion?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Scott, would you like, did you want to speak to anything to that, or is he standing up?
He just waiting to answer a question.
Any,
If we calculate.
oh,
Yes, stand up.
County Executive Showman.
Let me just talk to you just one moment about the practical impact. And I think compromise is the right path. But contemplate for a moment how we've handled all of these positions for the 8 years that I've been here. This 6.7%, I haven't been involved with this, but I think that's what you said, the 6.7%.
6.5% was the increase in the first
It's nowhere near the biggest jump we've made with constitutional officers as long as I've been here, not even remotely close. We've gone double digits because generally the 2.5 or 3 or 4 is what we do in the off years, and other counties are jumping over the top. So that's number one. Number two, all other county employees, generically speaking, are averaging right now 4% increases per year. 2% COLA, 2% merit pay, and that dates back many, many, many years. So I understand they're not the same, true, especially in the case of the sheriff and, well, all of those listed in this case. The most likely candidates to replace them are people who are already in their departments.
Exactly.
You're going to have massive compression issues, even if you do make a compromise 4% the first year and 2.5% the last years, because two things are going to happen. One, the annual 4% increase, merit and COLA combined, is going to catch up quickly. And two, we're going to do another compensation plan review based on the last one that you approved and directed us to next year. And it's going to take this and put it on steroid. Those captains are going to, and probably lieutenants, are going to jump on the sheriff when that compensation plan happens. So I completely agree and respect what the administrative committee was attempting to do. I just ask that as you debate this and discuss it, that you think about all of those factors, because there's a lot of them at play. And you might having an unintended consequence on whether Sheriff Schulteis runs again or he doesn't, what it also looks like next time. Because I can tell you when I was first here, it was double-digit increases. They were huge jumps. And you want to see debate amongst the county board, they get really pissed off when you're talking 12, 14, 16% increases. So just, again, I encourage the dialogue around the compromise numbers, but just think of the compounding impact you're going to have.
I just wanted to reference, Josh talked about double-digit numbers, and just for this year alone, going into next year, one county was at 10.3%, one was at 18.5%, and then two were around 7%.
For which position?
Sure. And not all of those were on the bottom of the pay scale.
And Supervisor Mahawk's right, but inflation's going to really start to screw with these numbers.
Supervisor.
Could I ask the director, what are the 7 counties that we compare to, just
So we
get it
compare
on the
ourselves to
record?
9 counties.
9?
Those are the counties that surround us, less Milwaukee County.
Okay.
And it's La Crosse, Rock County, and Walworth County. And that's largely because of similar tax base and population size. I'm sorry.
Marathon also, right?
I don't have Marathon in these numbers.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Conrath, sorry.
Yeah, that's good. 2 questions.
So if we would not pass this, what is the current state for raises? You spoke of like 2% and then another 2% merit?
When I was speaking to that Supervisor Conrath, I was speaking to the compensation plan, which applies to non-elected. By state law, you must pass a resolution now setting the salary. So it becomes fixed for the next 4 years. Basically, you're telling candidates, if you run and you win, here's what you're gonna make.
All right.
Did I answer your question?
There's no merit also?
There is not.
There's not.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Marquardt.
So just to keep the debate on the amendment, I think the argument that you can't supervise employees who make more than you I think is a little spurious. Because anybody who's got some good salespeople would know that, that's not the case. However, the point that this is set now for 4 years and we don't know what's going to happen, in the next couple, judging from inflation. I think that either this compromise or another one that be reached is probably appropriate.
I'm amiable to friendly amendments.
A friendly amendment. No? Supervisor Mahalik.
Thank you. I appreciate what Supervisor Kelly is talking about. However, I also agree with Supervisor Marquardt. You have to start looking at some of the people within the state who run for elected office. Okay, to say a captain wouldn't run for sheriff, there's something to be the top dog. Okay, they don't actually ask for, gee, who's the captain? It's who's the sheriff. You don't get that by not running. Okay, and look at some of what we have even in our state. Look at Ron Johnson. You realize the haircut Ron Johnson took going from being the executive of his own company and making a 7-figure income, and then now for the U.S. Senate for under $200,000 a year. You do it to serve. Okay, again, going to our own county executive, I mean, you do it to serve. And I'm not saying that means they should be underpaid, but they're not paid peanuts. And plus you have to realize, of course, we're paying into the Wisconsin retirement system. They get a nice pension. There's a lot to being an officer or a sheriff. So I agree with the fact that you don't have to necessarily earn more. Having been very successful in sales in the past, I know what it is to earn more than my boss. So it's not as uncommon as you think. I don't think it's going to keep anybody from running. If it is, then I would question their want to you make you really good money as a captain, but don't want to take a bit of a haircut because then they're not interested in leading. And that might be part of the measure of wanting that individual in that position. So, but in all fairness, because I didn't necessarily know that even my 2.5% for all 4 years was going to hold, I don't think 4% that first year is extraordinary. That's what I was hoping would be the top end of it. Any amendment to what we had pushed through the administrative committee, and based on that, I will support it.
Supervisor Dice.
If you're looking at increasing the sheriff's salary that first year because he's got captains that are making more than him or will be, then I think it would only be fair to also look at the clerk of courts. Is there a deputy? I don't know. I've been away from that office for over 10 years now. Is there a deputy that is close to making what the clerk of courts is making? I mean, if you're looking at it for the sheriff, then you need to look at it for the clerk of courts too, for the same reason, if that's the way you want to go.
Just a point of privilege, so we stay on track. Right now, we're on the amendment to the sheriffs. So, but we should talk about that too, I agree.
Director Scott, look at that. Is there any more discussion on the amendment?
Yeah, just make sure it's okay.
Seeing none, we'll vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment? Signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Please raise your hand. So we'll see. Okay, everyone but one. Okay.
nothing against you, Marty.
Okay, now I think we can
Okay,
find out more about
yeah.
clerk of courts.
Wait for Director Scott.
So the top of that range is, pardon me, let me get my glasses. 79,565.
$9,000 lower.
So that it's below
That's a good
where
gap.
that's at. Why? It's around $80,000, so it's, there is a difference.
Okay.
Appropriate.
All right.
So
And she fits in right close to the 75% percentile, yeah.
so that's the top of that tier, right? So the most that they can make is.
Okay.
And the only reason I asked that was because I can remember when I was the clerk, my deputy was very close to making as much as I was making.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a good thing to look at.
Yep. Okay, great.
Good job.
So now we'll go back to the amended resolution. Is there any?
Just
Supervisor?
real quickly, so we're at 4%, which is 12243.76. Thank you, Mr. Krebs, plus 2.5, plus 2.5, plus 2.5. That's what we're,
Yep. Just change that first year.
okay. Just wanted to make sure we were clear on that. Yes.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote on the amended resolution. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Got it?
I'm going out with a bang.
Going out with the vengeance, huh, Chris?
Okay. 2021 ordinance 12, amending section 15-6 relating to procedural rules, appropriation, Washington County Golf Course restrictive covenant. Supervisor Gonring, Supervisor Gauss. I should have let Krebs do that one.
I was napping.
Okay, all right, any, Supervisor Gauss.
Chair, if you allow me, add our land use and planning, which included for the chair, Mary, who was unable to attend. We had considerable discussion about this, and while I appreciate and respect the county executive comments that he made, and basically questioning the 100% as and I think he used the word absurd. We talked about it, and we felt we made a commitment as this body, and we felt that 100% would require a future board to truly understand what it is that they're doing. We made a commitment to the community, to our county, with this perpetuity land and perpetuity use of the land. So that was our rationale behind it. We did have discussion about the 3/4, and we felt it was a stronger message to our community, and that's why we came up with 80%.
Supervisor Bishop.
I agree with what Mr. Galitz and the committee came up with, the 100%. Understand that in the packet, county executives, again, said ludicrous. If it's that easy to change an ordinance because you think it's foolish, why do we bother with ordinances? When they chose to make it 100% vote, I agree with Supervisor Galitz, they're sending a message. And you all have to be in agreement if you're going to be taking that big a step. And future boards may be smaller. That's something that seems to be pushed a lot here. And it takes less people then to get your 3/4%. So I believe the 100% is an appropriate percentage to have here for a vote if they want to change this.
Supervisor Krebs.
Okay. I will rip the Band-Aid off here and have a spoiler alert. It only takes 50% of the board to actually start this process. The 100% here is what's written, would be codified. It only takes a simple majority of the board to change in the future this procedural vote. So even though it says 100%, 50% of the board in the future can change the 100% to any number that they want. So it's really from this day forward already 50%. This is strictly,
Window dressing.
I'm trying to send a message now of this board's commitment to that property and what we intend for its use to be. So whether it's grandstanding now or in the future, if, there could be a political grandstand in the future when this comes up and there's an attempt to change this vote. So this 100% that I fully support and still agree with is only good as the paper it's printed on the iPad here. I do also have the fears of the smaller boards in the future that the push towards that. Think about if this board is 5 members in 20 years from now, it only would take 3 supervisors to start the process of undoing this covenant. And also, just so everyone's aware of, this is only to start amending this covenant and removing it. There's still a judge's order that would have to go through the court system and have a judge review it. So there are other layers of protection on this. I'm not trying to scare everyone how easy it would be to remove this covenant. But I think we owe it is if we were committed enough to do a formal easement on this property to try to protect it in perpetuity, I think it deserves our commitment of showing that a board would have to be unanimously for this. So, thank you.
Roger Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Krebs. Hearing what Mr. Krebs just said, we all went along with this. We all voted for it. We all are going to protect the land. There's a big amount of money that was given to us to make sure that the will of the people in that area want to keep it the way it is. We all agreed to it. So adding this 100%, I have no problem with it. I really don't. I will support this. I encourage you to support it as well. Thank you.
Any other discussion on this?
Done, Josh.
Supervisor Gallant's had
Supervisor Gallantz?
I guess just procedurally, we want to make sure we look at the ordinance itself. The ordinance, I think, was changed or gives us the prep work. So it does say vote 100% on line 19.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. Go ahead, Josh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I very intentionally used a word that was going to get attention. I just didn't think it'd get that much attention. The reason I used it is because of exactly what Supervisor Krebs just laid out. I think there's pretty much unanimous agreement that what we've accomplished with the endowment and now this restrictive covenant is a wonderful thing for the county. I don't think anybody in this room disagrees with that. Now we're talking about what's the best way for us to protect that good thing for perpetuity. That's what we're trying to accomplish. When you contemplate 100% rule, we're in a democracy. You're a Republican body. There's no such thing as 100% votes. So now put yourself in the shoes of somebody 50 years from now. Pretend for a second that YouTube doesn't exist. Please God, YouTube doesn't exist. But 50 years from now, when they're contemplating what the change in that use is, and they read the code that requires 100% vote, tell me that that's not ludicrous. So what am I saying to you? What I'm saying is what you're attempting to do right now, the word that you were struggling to find before was you're trying to create politics. You've got a legal mechanism in the restrictive covenant in and of itself. That's one giant hurdle that even if you get a $25 million offer on that property, you have to go to a judge and prove to him it's good enough to make this change. That's a huge hurdle. Now, what you're trying to do with this ordinance is put a political hurdle in the way of a future board. Okay, you want to do this? Here's the hurdle you got to get over. So what's practically going to happen? 50 years from now, we get a $25 million offer. There's going to be 100 people that live along the subdivision to the east of that property, who are all Brian's second and third cousins, sitting in this room with signs and pitchforks saying, don't you dare. And the first thing that some supervisor, probably from the town of Erin, is going to say, if you pass 100% rule is, this rule is ludicrous. We're in a democracy. There's no such thing as 100%. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to amend that rule and make it a 50% vote. And you know what? He or she is going to be right. And everybody else in that room who's trying to fight on the side of the issue that you're trying to create, the politics you're trying to create, is going to have no leg to stand on. Because you're right, it's ludicrous. Now, a 3/4 vote is not ludicrous. There's precedent. A 3/4 vote is required in order to borrow money in the state of Wisconsin for a county. You could also add a whole nother layer. Supervisor Krebs had called me and asked about this. You could add another layer to say this rule can't be changed without a 3/4 vote. The importance of this ordinance that you're passing today is yes, it's symbolic, but it's an important symbol that's going to put pressure on a future board to make sure, okay, if you're really going to go through this first step to get to the even harder second step, everybody in that community better know about it. And they're going to they better fill that room if it's that big of a deal. And you have to have the biggest majority we allow for in our democratic republic to make it possible. Anything more than that is truly ludicrous. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Pollock.
I just wanted to make note of the fact that it was this one only vote that was trying to get a 75% thing put in there when we voted on this. Thank you very much. And it does make the most sense now because it does have precedent. Thank you. You guys voted on the other side.
I agree. It's a political statement. With a 75%, if we had that caveat that it can't be changed without a 75% rather than a 50% simple majority, but that's what's going to be our
the protector.
If someone was going to make that amended to that, I'd be very willing to accept that.
Well, one thing you should think about before you do that, though, is that this isn't the only place in democratic republic history that this exists. If you've heard the term filibuster, I mean, this is the only thing stopping the filibuster from changing is a 50% vote. The filibuster takes a 60-40 threshold in the Senate. You're not familiar with it.
Yes.
But a 50%, a 50 plus 1 can change that rule.
Change the rules.
Yep.
So it's not like it's unprecedented. You could absolutely do that in the US Senate today. And that's what we're all freaked out about, why all of a sudden all Republicans love Joe Manchin.
Supervisor Krebs.
Sure. It's my understanding that we can't change the code to make this one procedural rule change require 75% vote. Like how our code is currently set up, our procedural rules, we can't carve out a niche vote requirement just for this 15.6 section. Otherwise, I would gladly have entertained that, and we discussed that at the committee level. But it's whether it's by timing or just inflexibility of how the code is structured, that didn't seem to be. It was a majority vote in that set.
Yeah, we could have our county attorney speak to that.
Right. So as the rules currently stand right now, to suspend a rule of the county board that takes 2/3 vote of those present to repeal this particular provision would be by a simple majority if you wanted to repeal as you would in any other provision of the code. However, this is just a procedural rule, and by law, you set your own procedural rules. So in actuality, you can carve out an exception to this particular rule if you like. You can require that this rule not be subject to suspension as would normally be allowed under 15-6 sub S. And quite frankly, you could put a provision in here if you wanted to that prohibits repeal of this subsection by less than 3/4 of members elect voting. So I'm sorry, Supervisor Krebs, to call you out, but you can do that. And if I didn't understand that question prior, if you asked me that, that's on me. But I have been doing some research on this, especially as we sat here tonight, to clarify what's even within our own code, and that's what I've concluded.
So you could make it that is unamendable to a lower amount in the future unless you hit that carve out majority that we specified.
What you would want to do is, first of all, you would want to exempt this provision from a suspension of the rules vote, number one. So you can't suspend that rule, whatever you decide to make it. Then what you do is, if you don't want this provision repealed by a simple majority, so this subsection pulled out of the code by a simple majority, you make this subsection a 3/4 vote to even repeal it of members elect. So you can make it as complicated as you want. These are your rules.
However, Attorney Stern, those provisions would also just be subject to future boards, correct? Because you cannot bind future boards to those kind of rules.
That's correct. But what you would do by what I just said is, and I'm not saying you should do that or not do that, I'm just giving you an example. What you would do is, first of all, you'd make it such that that rule cannot be suspended. You cannot repeal that either so easily. But yes, any future board can, and any future county attorney sitting here may have a different opinion and could work with those leaders to come up with workarounds and things, absolutely.
And is there anything with the 100% provision that could be legally challenged as being arbitrary or something?
I didn't think so when it was proposed.
Okay.
Again, these are your rules.
Supervisor Gotts?
Actually, Executive Chairman, it was good to hear your rationale. I sort of read that in between the lines. And thinking that through, will a future board do just what I think Executive Showman is asking? And maybe we weren't thinking of this in our land use and planning of what does that really mean? And is that truly democratic, if you will? And consensus is one thing, right? That's what we do here, is come to consensus, but that's saying something different. And one may choose, right? We have Supervisor Mohalik who said, yeah, I was the lone person out. Well, he's entitled to that vote. So I think I am in favor of going with the 3/4 recommendation. And I would make a motion to amend the resolution to take a recommendation from Executive Showman, replacing 100% with 3/4.
I'll second that.
Second. Okay, to the amendment? To the amendment? Supervisor Krebs first.
Could I make a friendly amendment that it would include the language that it is not subject, or Brad, what's the the verbiage I'm looking for? Not subject to suspension rules.
This rule shall not be subject to suspension as provided under section 15-6S of this code, or 15-6S. We could streamline that.
So accepted.
Okay, do you want to work with Ashley to get it?
Yeah, do we have consensus that friendly amendment is okay?
Yeah.
Otherwise, the motion belongs to the body.
Who was the second?
Chris.
Is your second? Okay. Why don't we take a 5-minute break, and then you can.
Do we need it?
You don't think we
We're
need?
good. He's got it. He'll give it to us. We're good.
Okay. All right. To the amendment?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm in support of this. I think just as a point of realism, whenever we have a 2/3 vote, we really struggle to meet it sometimes, especially if it's anything controversial. So a 3/4 vote.
It's pretty controversial.
Yeah. If something's really controversial, it's going to be tough to meet that vote. So I think that ensures adequate protection in addition to having to go to a judge and all that. So, yep.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Mahalik, to the amendment?
Yes, in the Orwellian world that Brian Krebs occasionally pulls us into when there's 5 supervisors in the future, that would mean that you can't do it with 3 votes. you'd have to have 4.
That's how the math works.
So that's how.
That's your Orwellian future, we're down to 5.
In your 5 supervisor world. So it adds that additional layer of protection.
You can tell it's the second to last meeting of the session.
Okay, any further discussion on amendment? Supervisor Krebs?
I'll just say that this alleviates a majority of what my concerns were at the land use meeting about this to start with, because I was pointing out the ludicrousy that originally 50% of the board could override a 3/4 or 100% vote. With that, I still won't support this amendment though, because I'd rather play politics today than play politics on a 5-member board in the future.
All right, any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Hey.
Okay, 2 opposed, Krebs and Conrad. The case. Okay, now we will vote on the ordinance. All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Hey.
1 opposed. Okay. 2021 ordinance 13, amend section 49.4 related to per diem compensation. Entertain a motion. Supervisor Swisek, Supervisor West-Pollock. Any discussion on this? Okay, seeing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next meeting date, Tuesday, April 19th, 2022 at 7:30 a.m. Hopefully in our new boardroom. It's supposed to be done by the 9th. So let's hope they're on schedule and we can actually see the fruits of their labor. So I entertain a motion to convene in closed session pursuant to 1985 1E, Wisconsin statute deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically to discuss the development and or acquisition of property within the county to house an individual committed under Chapter 980 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Chairman,
A motion?
consider a break.
Huh?
Chairman, consider a break.
5-minute break.
I want to go to closed session.
All right, we'll take a quick 5-minute break before we actually take the motion. Thank you. Okay. The supervisor, huh?
Actually table the motion.
Yeah. Supervisor Kelly's eyes are turning yellow, so I think it's.
His eyes are turning yellow, he's got a white in him.
In what? What?
In a raise. In the budget.
Everyone laughs about the 5-member board.
We haven't had a.
Downside the board, that conversation was brought up a lot. Everyone cited in Minnesota, there's counties with 5 members. Texas.
A lot of places with 3
Yeah.
commissioners.
I think realistically, if we got down to 15, we'd be doing good. I can't see us going more than that.
Haven't dug that far.
The board was all the committee members.
Still got one big one to do.
You represent all the different.
Yeah, 5 is too small.
Depends on the population. Here in Wyoming, you have 3,500 people in the county.
I will not support increasing.
That is so good. What can you do to try?
You don't represent. I'm planning to have Bradley. Otherwise, I clear.
No, well,
I want to see how 21 goes. I'm hoping to going down to something like 17.
My only point when people were saying, well, well, geez, I'd have to represent 6,000 people. I was just on the school board and that's a population of 50,000 voters that you have to represent on the school board. So it's,
That's, yeah,
it's a far cry.
It's not.
Hey, Don, we're just going into a closed session quick and then we're more home. I forgot about the closed session thing. It's almost done. You know.
So you can't be on.
No, I'll be on. Okay.